that started with Sputnik, and you have that.
Right.
I get down to Prairie View, and I go to this large auditorium meeting, kind of orientation meeting or something, and hear these black men all speaking, and of course they all sound just like uh, some preacher you know, reading out of the same book, same page, uh, same monotone, uh, and not eloquent, or no acumen, no, not cogent, not.
So they must have been professors.
Yes. So what, you said that, right? With their doctorates and so forth. So here's this man gets up tall, uh, very no nonsense, and starts talking. I ain't never heard a black man talk like that in my life. Nor speak words in the way that he speak them, although you never heard the words before. You understood what he mean by the words on top of it. So this was brother Brown. His name is Herbert Joseph Brown. He's from New Haven, Connecticut, born and raised there, graduated from UConn, and he was brought to Prairie View because they needed someone who had the APA, American Psychological American Psychological Society, or whatever it was, accreditation, in order to give their psychology department accreditation in Texas. So he was brought down for that. Well, he and Sam Brown, who was Lionel Hampton's stepbrother from Chicago, had formed this musical fraternity called the Crescendos, which my friend John Edward Lee, who had told me about coming down to Prairie in the first place, he was already a crescendo. He had pledged the year before. And actually, in reality, not being facetious, the word was already out that I could play drums.
Mm-hmm.
And they had this rehearsal and maneuvered me there. Well, I had pawned my drums because I didn't want to play drums no more. You know, actually, when I went to pawn my drums, they almost put me in jail because somebody had stolen a set of black drums the night before from some hillbillies out there in Lake Worth or somewhere. But the drums I had were mine. But because I was black and I had these black drums, the pawn shop people, had me stalling and had me hanging around till the detectives get there, and they wanted to put me in jail for some drums they know that I stole. And then finally, some kind of way, they found out that my father, and they let me go.
Why did you want to pawn your drums at that point?
Because I didn't want to play drums. I didn't want to have nothing to do with them.
How come?
That's just the way I get sometimes. It's not that it wasn't the first time. I told you about I quit playing when I come back from Houston.
Mm-hmm.
And James Clay, he never, but Claude and them always they would come once a week, usually around 8 or 9 at night, knowing that way I'd be there. Had to be there at the store, and asked me to come play in Dallas, with the Red Tops and other stuff. I didn't want to play.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get down there, and finally they call me, and this same man who gives this eloquent speech, which to me would have been the equivalent of like hearing Alexander Poe, someone who understood black history, black people, and the multi-mentality of the American people on a cross-reference. A man who was very well, comes from a very well educated family in New Haven. People who never were slaves. In fact, he was part of the Wheatley family, which is the family out in Brooklyn that had sectioned off this whole section of blocks of area that was totally patrolled so that no gangs could come in, like the slave, what do you call them, slave catchers This was one of the safest places in America for slaves, other than getting to Canada, was from the Wheatley family. Well, he's from that whole thing. You know? So it turns out that he and Brother Brown and Brother what's his name, Sam, were head of the Crescendos. And I went to this rehearsal they had and sit in and played. And of course, I got, initiated in and all that. But I told them I couldn't take no butt whooping. You know, and put no paddle on my behind. If you want me to join, fine. But
with the hazing and all?
Right. So they had me go in the room and holler like... And my friend John Edward, he know damn well because they were wheeling those paddles. So, and I heard about it, so I said, no, man. So, here I'm back playing drums. I don't want to play drums then. Right? I want to learn. I want to know what make airplanes fly. I want to know why come I'm treated the way I'm treated when I haven't did anything to anybody. I want to know why, if I'm walking down the street, why people throw a potato with razor blades at me. And I didn't even know they were around there. What was their problem?
The potato with razor blades?
Oh yeah, when I used to have to walk to the store on the south side. Kids come through, white kids come in the neighborhood doing all kind of crazy shit. And it, reported, you say? Yeah. To who? the Ku Klux Klan police, because, Fort Worth is one of the headquarters for Ku Klux Klan. So, of course. And it's still heavily oriented. I told you, one of the main off the Riverside was across the street here. That's why they blew up the front window. So now it's all tied in, but in order to get it. But I don't want to get too far from that. But okay. Brother Brown already had sent a couple of people. What's his name, to Wayne State University. He graduated in Paris College, and we never saw him anymore. You could write to him, but you had to write to Buffalo, New York, and the letter would go to some government agency where he had been employed. So basically, I never really saw him anymore after that. And then he already had 4 people in the works when I met him. I became the 5th. So there was this girl who wound up at Rutgers. There was Waylon Washington, whose mother and father both taught math in high school in Waco, who was the year, we were roommates actually too, who was the, what do you call that, student of the, reigning student of the year for whatever that was, that kind of. And Lamont, James Lemon, who went to the University of South Dakota and got a law degree and was the lawyer for that richest black man in Texas, I think, at that time, who owned all them cattle and all down below Houston. And myself, which was the least bottom of So he tutored me. First, I had to go through taking the Rothschild and all that kind of shit, right? So you know where I was. I didn't know who the president was and didn't give a shit. What would I care about who was the president? I mean, it just didn't, had nothing to do with me. I was interested in playing music. So anyway, after we went through all that shit, he taught me diction and gave me these books. The first book was, you had to take 10 words at a time, memorize them, and the words that attached to them at the beginning and at the end, prefix. And it just tutored me until I got to a point where I could actually understand some of the things that I had no idea about.
Did it change the way you spoke? You said he tutored you in diction?
And the way I just learned, I didn't start back talking Southern now since I've been down here, but I learned to have better diction because I lived in New York all that time. But I picked it up from listening to him talk. Because you need someone who knows the right pronunciation of the words. You can is the word Houston or Houston?
Depends on where you are.
Right, it's both. Yeah. But some people it ain't. It's this side it means to some people, and that side does. Anyway. That's how I started. And one of the first, he gave me this book, that's how I learned about Richard III. For some reason, he had given me this Winter of My Discontent. And I didn't know anything about acting and all that kind of stuff or nothing like that. I didn't pay no attention to it. But obviously, he knew that it fitted my character, I guess. And whenever I said it, I just got into it. I just felt like how this fellow felt. I them could tell of fair proportions, cheated of features by disseminating sentence, breathing, piping well before. But he didn't tell me it was Shakespeare. If he had told me it was Shakespeare, I probably never would have learned it. Probably it was there written on there, but it might have been, I don't know. But this is what he had me learn. This little section of that, and then he got me up to the point where I'd already went through these other books, this elementary type of diction and how to spell, all that kind of stuff. The first book he got me to read was Albert. What was the German who built organs?
Albert Schweitzer.
Albert Schweitzer. He gave me the book on the biography of Albert Schweitzer, and I had to work my way through that. In the meantime, I'm being fed and programmed to understand that I hadn't been schooled at all. It was deliberate, that I was living in a culture and an environment where you're born, you're raised, you go to school, you go to high school, those go to college, and you come back and teach the next generation less because you didn't get nothing in the first place, and that's the kind of cyclist thing it was in, which was very obvious when integration came about. Well, this was before integration. So I get through that, and then he had me read this book, People Who Walk in Darkness, which is taught this French author who had came over and lived down in Mississippi and Alabama and places and looked at the nature of slavery and how what mental effect it had on black people. And one of his theories about why black people cherish driving a Cadillac. Even now you got that hillbilly song, but you're selling all these Cadillacs to black people because that's who you see driving them. What do they call them? Escalators and all that kind of crazy. Even a friend of mine got 3 of them. Escalade, the big Fleetwood or whatever that is, and the 2-seater. But I mean, and got mad at me because I said, look here, that's just a car name with Chevrolet Motors. They quit making Cadillacs a long time ago. But anyway, he was explaining that black people got that way from the field people looking through the bushes. And you see, of course, later you see pictures of it, They would gather there. You had the house slaves who were, the coach drivers and set the stool. The one who rode on the back set the stool so Master and Bella could get out of this. She's arriving in her French-made shoes and chiffon dress and hair and all. But the black people are over there in their what you call croaker sacks, hiding behind the bushes, looking at this. And his basic theory was that they're observing this, but not seeing the mathematics, the bookkeeping, the work that's involved to create that. I mean, but with the understanding that, clear understanding that that's what you can see what's going on, where you see people desire being created in people to want something that's a spectacle would look like the epitome of life. The crest that you want to get to in life would be able to ride in a carriage, which is nowadays a Cadillac. Even when I was growing up, I told you before I had to work in a Cadillac. Although my father, one point I forgot to tell you, my father, we couldn't put he got to the point where I told you we had 23 jukeboxes, but most of them were new, brand new. By the time we got to that point, we had brand new jukeboxes. And he had tried to get me to go to school to Wurlitzer up there in Chicago. I didn't want to go because I wasn't interested. It was nice.
A Wurlitzer? To get trained on the
right, because machine? And they had accepted me to do that, but I wouldn't go. He realized and taught me a lot of things about black people, my people. You know, we kind of people that are very envious. Even Marcus Garvey, you know, said we are most spiritual people on the planet, but most envious of each other, which holds us down more than anything. And if he bought a new Cadillac, and he never bought a brand new one that year, he always bought the year used, but the year passed. Even then, we'd lose 3 or 4 jukeboxes because people own the places. We split the money in half, you know, and one of my jobs was to take change up until 12 o'clock at night. You know, if somebody called the store and needed quarters and nickels and dimes, I had to get it to them. You know.
So how did you lose jukeboxes because of the car?
Because of the envy.
Oh.
Just plain envy. If you're black people, if you get ahead of them, no, they go get a white jukebox, and don't get the same service. And don't get as much of the money. Envy, which he pointed out to me, I should have understood that lesson then, I guess I didn't. Envy is heavier than the money thing. And this happened quite a few times. This wasn't something just happened once or twice. Mm-hmm. Man, I told you about people would call and I had to go get a jukebox, but sometimes it wasn't because the jukebox broke down. It was because I had to go get it. They had already pushed it to the side. Because they heard my father had this and he had that. That's when he was so secretive, They didn't know he owned bowling and liquor store and shit.
So they were jealous, so they didn't
very
want to be his customer anymore?
Oh, some people would definitely didn't want to be customer no more, not even at the store. He had motels. Soon as integration come, black people want to go to stay in Howard Johnson. They don't want to go to Black Motel no more.
I see.
You see? They want to go to the white bowling alley. They want to go to Woolworth's to eat. I mean, to me it's kind of ironic, but it's not really funny. But it didn't faze me that was supposed to be. I mean, Riata, yes, but Woolworth is the epitome, a criteria of eating a good meal. I don't think so. But that's what was going on, So
because it had been prohibited before.
Yes. Whatever was you prohibit, the demand is increasingly created. Mm-hmm. So that was the time period. That's what was going on. Right.
So,
okay.
When you were doing all this studying, were you there in Bridgeport?
No, I was down in Prairie
Okay.
For 2 years. For 2 years. I didn't hardly come home for vacations or anything else.